Thanks,
Ricky,
guys.
you're aware that you sent us that note. Just want to make sure we got that and we're heading in that direction.
That's great. And if he's late, I'll start first. We can be flexible about it. But if he's here, that would be good.
Okay, awesome, John. Well, we have about a minute and a half left. I'll give you a little countdown and let you take over from there.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Michael, just want to make sure you'll ensure that we record the meeting, right?
Yes, we are going to be recording the meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, John Rogers, we are 10 seconds out.
Okay, great.
And I will let you take over from there.
Okay.
All right. 3, 2, 1. We are live on YouTube.
Okay. Good morning. My name is John Rogers. I'm an environmental manager with the Division Oil, Gas, and Mining, and I'd like to welcome you to our virtual collaborative meeting. We've been doing just about a year for now, and I just wanted to look back and think, what has the year done to us? Well, I think back at this time last year, and things looked pretty tough. The average price I just looked up today for oil for WTI was $18.50. Today I looked up, we're at $64.80. Look at that rebound we've had. Production is up to 2.4 million barrels per month for oil as of February, and it's holding steady. Our rig count is up to 9, where last summer we were down to 0. So we can see it's rebounding, and I think given our feelings last spring, I think it's been a positive year all in all. And so I appreciate your support and all you've done and to keep this industry rolling out there during these difficult times. Today we have an agenda that I think is going to be very informational. First, we have Jordan Clark, who is a Senior Vice President at TYR Group. And I saw Jordan present what he's going to talk today about at a Society of Petroleum Engineers meeting a month or so ago. And I thought it'd be good to share his thoughts on infrastructure and how he can help and his company can help with oil production in the basin. So we're going to hear from Jordan. Next, we have on the agenda, we have Ricky Harenko Browning, president of the UPA, and she's going to talk about some of the legislative issues that arose for the petroleum industry this last session. But we're going to flip-flop that and have Senator Winterton give us some more detail from an insider's view on how that worked, and then have Ricky speak to those issues later. So at this time, I'd like to turn the time over to Jordan, and he can present his issues. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, John. I will share my screen just momentarily, but since I can see most of you, I'll just introduce myself again. Jordan Clark, great to be with all of you with TYR Group. Having a year off and not have been able to join this meeting last year, it's great to be back with all of you and to join Ricky with the UPA and also Senator Winterton and share as a panelist this morning with them. So it's an honor to be with them as well. And also thank you to the Oil, Gas, and Mining for the opportunity to share, what we are doing at TYR Group from a midstream perspective and the things that we've been working on to support producers. We recognize that there are a lot of stakeholders in Utah and we are just one of them, and looking to provide our perspective. And certainly we recognize that it takes all hands to work together in making a successful future. So with that, I'll just share my screen and kind of dive into it here. So. Okay, I'm hoping that everyone can see the screen okay. And me as well. So TIER is a privately held, and we focus on logistics solutions and terminal operations for hydrocarbons and agricultural commodities. We provide logistical expertise, strategic planning, and access to domestic and regional markets, and exports for our partners and clients. That's who we are as a group and what we focus on. Our projects for regional connectivity are for Utah, delivering low-cost transportation solutions and to provide environmental and economic value to Utah's energy landscape and the areas that we operate. And we're really committed to that and Utah as a center of where we operate now and in the future. What we like to focus on as a group to underpin our purpose and our commitment is to how do we increase the Uinta Basin's takeaway capacity, focus on new market access, logistical through logistical midstream, and then advancing innovation and the integration of best available technologies through a midstream perspective. We do like to engage on regulatory policies and solutions as it relates to our industry and how we might improve production and the connectivity between midstream and producers. So we'll talk a little bit about that. I will talk about that a little bit in this presentation. First, what we're doing in the basin from origination, what we like to talk about in midstream is you have to have a place you start and a place you go. And a lot of the key opportunities that we see are how do we strengthen the bench, so to speak, in the basin by having opportunities for in-basin support. We recognize that the frac sand opportunity in the basin is not a new idea, but we have also identified a in-basin frac sand play outside of Vernal. And we've also identified and patented a modular infrastructure opportunity for the production of and transportation of waxy crude into ISO containers at the wellhead. We're also have purchased the land at Highway 191 and Highway 6 for a terminal, which is very close to Duchesne and not so far from Vernal, which is dual served, will be dual served by the BNSF and the UP as we continue to develop that terminal. The frac sand play is in feed development, so we're doing the primary analysis, but we do have the load claims and a SITLA lease along with the BLM claims, and we're working to bring that into production as it's feasible with to match with the production in the basin. Where that is meets with our goals of aligning with producers and the environment is reducing the environmental impact for transportation costs. and shortening the distance that frac sand needs to be transported to the producers. So TIER was awarded a red ribbon patent for a system of production into storing and transporting waxy crude into ISO containers. Each ISO container has the capacity of 150 barrels. Why is that significant? If you run doubles, it's about 300 barrels, and the crude does not have to be heated. In these, it can set solid for long distance hauling to new markets. In an acre of land, you can store about 210,000 barrels because you can stack them. So it creates modular storage where you can just create opportunities for storage at both the origination and destination of the crude, whether it be the refineries or other industries where the waxy crude is in demand. It meets the spec for the standard TEU, the 20-foot equivalent container transportation, lowering the cost. It also lowers the cost because you're only handling the crude twice instead of the transload at some of the transload facilities because you're doing it at the wellhead once and at the destination the other time. So we do think that's significant in most cases. We do recognize that that the heated rail cars or trucks, for instance, in Salt Lake from the basin do have that value, but they do have to be heated. And the storage tanks have to be heated. So this would change the opportunity for modular and expanded storage optionality, both here in Utah and in new markets. Here is the picture of the terminal location. You can see right now the high-speed line of the double track of the UP right there in Helper, Utah. That is the location of the old coal plant that was reclaimed. Many of you are familiar as you used to drive to Carbon County and had to pass under the old coal plant there. That is no longer there. That is the same property. So we're excited about that as we look at increased capacity. One of the other opportunities that we see is supporting the the air energy nexus and increasing crude production is the natural gas takeaway with the associated gas and producing bringing in modular liquefied natural gas, which can be also hauled away in the similar ISO containers and complements the similar strategy. So there are a lot of opportunities for liquefied natural gas that I think many are aware of, the benefits of capturing it and using it on site and not having the release or having to flare either or. And I know a lot of the newer wells don't even flare now. So we're talking about many of the older wells that could be, capturing some of the gas. So as we look at the inland port, we are very focused on how we transload and store energy products through our TIER Castlegate and other sites to bring and support Utah's vision for increased energy products and bringing the rural communities and tying in the opportunities that would bring forward and support opportunities. One, for continuing Utah's effort to have low-cost energy, and two, supporting a low emission opportunity for the Utah Inland Port. So that is a team effort, but we support that with our terminals at Castlegate and other sites that we're working on to connect with that Utah Inland Port. Summary of just our origination and what we're working on is to optimize our tier terminals and partnerships for waxy crudes and the energy resources with exports in Carbon County, develop our Castlegate terminal in Carbon County for waxy crude exports with dual access on the Class 1s, and then the tier inland port terminal in Salt Lake for our ISO container freight, and future joint venture partner in a terminal in the Uinta Basin that we will be working on as well to support our ISO container freight. So as we look at the originations, it always has to go somewhere. And we are well positioned in Corpus Christi, Texas, with a terminal there that is a double loop track now, has over 1,000 car rail capacity currently. It is expanding to 3,000 rail cars by July 1st. Then we have the Port of Bellingham, which is for ISO tank and other container traffic for export, and it is dedicated for Utah. We have turned away other business at Bellingham because we're excited about Utah and opening up this port for export capacity for Utah. We also have a joint venture at the Port of Guaymas for bulk commodity export. It is not any of the existing terminals. It is a new gate at Guaymas, and it creates opportunity for any bulk commodity to include our traditional commodities in Utah and any other commodities that may be important to Utah. So we're excited about that. In the Ensenada, Mexico is a great opportunity for containerized freight. And we have a joint venture there to continue to look at how that might fit for Utah and the overcrowding at Long Beach and the Port of LA as traffic continues to be overcrowded there. So here's just a map of what we have, and I'll just highlight my pointer here. Here's our terminals in Corpus Christi. We actually have two at Corpus Christi, the Alice terminal and Bronco. They're about 50 miles apart, I think. Guaymas, Ensenada, and then up here at Bellingham. Then we have our Frac Sand Play, Castlegate, and then your Utah Inland Port. So there we see both the dedication to Utah and then also accessing new markets through strategic logistic routes and working with partners and new markets. So what we see is some of the benefits to waxy crude is the increased capacity for exports down 191 and new terminal capacity to grow with the basin production. Capacity for heated rail cars currently shipped to the Northwest, Colorado, and the Gulf Coast can be increased with ISO containers, and the potential to redirect many of the truckloads hauled on Highway 40 through Carbon counties and increase the storage and supply chain optionality for the Salt Lake refiners. Here's just a shot of our Corpus Christi terminal and the double loop track. And we're actually doing the expansion here with 6 new ladders for the continued growth in that area. So what our approach to waxy crude is, continue to work on the logistics through Tiers-Carbon County terminal and the inland port, our ISO tanks through the port of Bellingham and other container traffic from Utah, ISO tanks through Corpus Christi and the Gulf Coast, and increase takeaway capacity, which supports new drilling and production, and grow markets in China and India for the yellow wax. Here's a picture of the port of Bellingham and the terminal that will be constructed there. And right here is where I'm circling, is where the takeaway and the ships will dock and then be loaded out there. And that is a direct connect with the BNSF Railroad. Just a summary of how we see, a phased approach to support the producers and increase production is construction of our Castlegate terminal with to match increased production. Phase 2 is construction of a magnet facility that connects the Wasatch Front and aligns with Utah's inland port strategy to connect rural counties. And phase 3 is the construction of the tier terminal in the Uinta Basin. And then here, a summary of what we've been doing. We've invested several millions of dollars over the last 4 years, either in land, in business development, and technology like the patent and the ISO containers for Utah, and ports for accessing new markets dedicated to takeaway capacity for Utah. We feel that these projects will benefit Ute tribal, Sitla, and private lands, generating the increased benefit economically. And we're excited about continued responsible growth, reduction of air emissions, and we see the potential for incremental takeaway and refining capacity at a minimum of 300,000 barrels over the next several years by working with state and industry stakeholders. We see an increased takeaway for natural gas exports to support the Western States Natural Gas and Tribal Nations Initiative for what that means for the Rocky Mountains and the Uinta Basin and the Piceance Basin, and to continue to support that effort. And we're overall, committed to trade and import and export capabilities that support industry growth in our rural communities. So that's what I wanted to kind of delve into with you today. And I think at this point I'll take some questions if that's appropriate, or we can just switch over to John, Senator Winterton. So.
No, I think it would be great to take some questions at this time. So.
Yeah, John Rogers, this is John Baza.
Yes.
I did raise my hand, but can I go ahead and ask my question?
Sure.
Well, yeah, I'm kind of blind to the screen while I'm presenting. So.
Okay. Jordan, I want to compliment Tier on being visionary and all the progress and investments you've made at this point. But, and you may have mentioned it in your discussion, but what kind of time horizon are you on to start seeing a return on your investment? Are we 1 year, 2 year, 5 years out?
We're looking to see a return this year. We're moving forward with development of production to ISO container within the next 6 months. We're doing pilot engineering, I guess you would say, and getting an as-built done within the next 6 months. So we believe that we'll be able to roll that out with producers who would like to utilize that and see that benefit. Hopefully, 6 months. I guess we're already in May, but hopefully within the next 6 to 8 months.
Okay, good to
I
know.
say within a year, but we're already in May, so.
All right. John, I think that Michael Vandenberg has his hand raised.
Okay. I'm not seeing that. Go ahead, Michael.
Hi, Jordan. Mike Vandenberg with UGS. I just had a quick question about how these projects could align with a possible Uinta Basin Railroad.
Sure. We're a terminal operator, and I think that any of the takeaway capacity that we would be working with the producers would certainly support the Uinta Basin Railroad. I think that as we access new markets, educate the markets on what the benefit of waxy crude can be and is already, that the increased capacity, the different ways that waxy crude can be moved to or transported to the market only supports what a railroad in the basin could look like and be. I think a lot of the opportunities lie in flexibility, transportability, and how products can move to market. And we are providing optionality for producers to move their product to market, and not just in the moving it in moving it heated to their markets. And this only provides another way that they could increase their volumes, move it to a potential buyer, and increase the offtake or supply on that railroad. So I see it as a complement to how the producers might provide more capacity to a railroad. And we certainly, are terminals, so we would connect into any railroad.
Looks like Ricky Renko Browning has her hand raised.
Yeah, thank you, Jordan. Really interesting set of activities that you're doing. I don't know if you can speak to this publicly, if not completely understand, but have you done any work in terms of economics and what the transportation cost of these containerized systems, how they kind of line up and compare with heated rail car or with other opportunities to get product out of the basin? And do you have anyone, again, I don't know if you can speak to this publicly yet, so sorry to put you on the spot, but do you have any producers that you've already started working with?
We have done the economics. I could speak to it from a very high level, but I wouldn't probably speak to the pricing competitiveness. But I can speak to, we have done the SDS, the safety data sheets for moving and got the patent for moving waxy crude as a solid or in a solid state, and it is classified as a non-hazardous, which reduces the rate, the rail rate significantly. So I could probably share that with you, and there are economic benefits to moving it as the waxy crude as a non-hazardous material.
Jordan, this is John Rogers. I know you're focused on the waxy crudes, but could you speak to the LNGs and how that works when you have an isolated well out there flaring gas that has no infrastructure to get that product to market? How do these containers work in that situation?
Sure. So what we're, our vision is for, working with the producers is to capture, off any of the associated gas. And there are modular liquefaction units. We need about 2 million MCF of gas to make it economical, which I don't think is an issue. But we can liquefy 2 containers, and then that can be trucked, out of the basin, or, if there's people in the basin that want to use LNG for industrial uses, I guess that would be there. But I think just like crude is trucked out of the basin, the LNG could be trucked out. And there's plenty of gas in the basin, and plenty of associated gas that I think one could, I think many of the producers already use it to run some of their equipment. And we would, look at doing the same, but any of the associated gas that we could capture, liquefy, is the vision there.
Okay, are these mobile LNG capture units operated by Tier, or are they a third party?
It's a partnership.
Okay, all right, thank you, Jordan.
Yeah.
Any more questions out there? Well, Jordan, we appreciate your time, and we look to the new opportunity out there to get more of our product to market and eliminate the waste of possible gas flaring. So it's excellent. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I saw that Senator Winterton is now online. Senator, we'd like to turn the time over to you to talk about the legislative summary of how it affected the oil and gas industry.
Thanks, John. It's good to be with you guys today. I'll give just a high level. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on the legislation. I think Ricky will probably talk more in depth on some of these bills. I went back through, and the ones that came to mind is we had House Bill 17. It was one that was a utility permitting amendment bill, and all this did was kind of put a restriction upon counties and cities to regulate or state that we're only going to have electric utilities here or green energy. We want all of the above approach in the state of Utah, so we're not limiting who or what kind of providers for these utilities can use that kind of resources. I felt like it was a protection for this industry particularly, is that you can't rule us out. And so that's in place now, that you can't just say, well, we're going to be total electric and green energy, from this year on. That's not going to be permitted in the state of Utah. We want to keep all of our options open. The market will dictate that. And if it's something that's a good business decision, then the market will drive those. But we don't want to be excluded because of that. Another one was the House Bill 32. And this basically had to do with the energy rates and how Public Service Commission and those will look back on that. Usually we're a year late in making any adjustments. This gives them a flexibility to look at those and adjust those in the interim of them going back and looking to see whether the customers have been overcharged or undercharged. It's a more time-sensitive review of that, so that hopefully you guys don't lose money on the thing because you're locked in. Representative Albright ran this one. I co-sponsored it, and we just felt that this was a good move. The state energy policy, House Bill 388, Albright and myself ran this bill. And this amends the state policy in which, keeping with the theme of all of the above approach, this bill actually stated to promote the pump storage and advancement energy systems, including hydrogen. That's starting to be quite a discussion, and we want to make sure that the options there. So that amended the state policy on that. One of the biggest ones that I think that is huge and a big win for Dogum is that Senate Bill 133, Senator Hinkins ran a bill to address the severance tax revenues that come into the state and reallocate funding to Dogum to help them stay whole, where mineral lease revenues is down. Severance tax is still the revenue source, and we haven't been able to use that in this division, and so that opened up the door for that. Also in that bill, we also identified and set up a reserve account for any excess funds over $100 million that comes into the severance tax portion of our revenues. We put that aside, and then as that gets built up, then we will decide on how we can use that money, kind of set it up like what the mineral lease funds do to be able to help with the impacts, especially to the local governments that they don't have a resource of mineral leases down. This will be another source. I don't see this becoming a factor or going in and setting that up for 2 or 3 years. If our revenues in that fund starts increasing, we'll have the tools to be able to address the impacts and having a revenue source to help with that. I did run a bill, Senate Bill 176, which addressed the Mineral Leasing Act to clarify language of what is appropriate use, when we say planning, what is planning? We define that out, what are government services and what are government facilities. So we put definitions there. So those that administer the Mineral Leasing Act, such as the Community Impact Board, the board now doesn't have to look over their shoulders wondering or not if they've done their job in screening the applicants, is it an appropriate one or not. So I felt that was a big win for us there. The other, we had a bill, I think this is Senator Hinkins also, Senate Bill 40, which addressed the petroleum storage tank. And this was the operators of certain above ground petroleum storage tanks will need to notify the department of the environmental response and mitigation on these, and also give financial assurance. Then we also had House Bill 348, which consults with the groups that contribute to the economy, such as the Utah Petroleum and the Utah Mining Association. We want their input and just track that a little bit more. So we do a terrible job in educating the public on what this sector of our economy does. We all enjoy, having the freedom to move about and having, products like this, but then we get beat up because it's the understanding that we are big contributors to the air quality issues, which I think we have done a good job in mitigating that and doing our part, but we're not getting that message out. And then last of all, last year we had 6 special sessions. In the last one, we passed Senate Bill 6004, which basically put a hold on rulemaking for Dogum until the end of June of this year. And hopefully that has helped a lot of you in your industry, knowing that we're not trying to change the rules on you or make it difficult. Just put that on hold, and then starting in July, then they'll go back to reviewing those and writing or just reviewing their policies and rulemaking on that. So unless there's questions, I think that's what I'll share with the group today. I do appreciate it, the opportunity. Thank everybody for what they do to contribute to the economy in the state of Utah, the jobs that are provided, and hopefully it's profitable for you, and that means good for the state of Utah. Unemployment, in the basin has been higher than the rest of the state. That's still very concerning to us, and we ought to give you the opportunities to let you do what you do best, which turns out to help all of us. So with that, John, thanks for this opportunity.
Well, Senator Winterton, we appreciate that. Would you be willing to take some questions from the group?
Sure, if I can answer them, I'd be glad to.
Looks like Ricky had her hand raised first.
Hey, Senator Winterton. Thank you for joining us and giving most of my presentation. I love that. I was glad that you went ahead of me. Thank you. We are about to go into special session next week, and there's been a lot of buzz around the ARPA funding. Can you share a little bit of what those discussions look like, where that funding is going to be allocated, and any kind of new information, if there's anything that impacts our industry?
Well, I can only speak to the discussions that I have had with leadership. In talking with them yesterday, there's between 30 and 40 items that they want to put on the call for this session. But after talking to the Senate President yesterday, I think that we're going to only address those issues of real concern right now. There are some errors in some of the bills that we passed in the general session that needs to be addressed. So those things will be on the call. As far as the appropriations of the money in that, we have three more years to spend this money. To think that we're going to hurry up and spend it, they've all decided to let's step back, look at the situation. They're talking about putting the bulk of the money into an account for grants that basically will be applied for. We're very concerned about this industry. The money that was appropriated was gone in eight hours, and so there's a lot of need there to help this industry. So as far as particular bills, we haven't had a discussion, nor have I seen anything. Later today, we'll have a caucus meeting in which I think we'll address some of these issues and what is it that we want the governor to put on the call for the special session, and trying to limit the scope and the time that we will be in session. Don't know that answered your questions, but that's as much as I know about what's going on.
Okay, John, I have a question, not a question, but a comment for the senator. And that is, Senator Winterton, I want to thank you as a legislator for your role in helping to pass Senate Bill 133. You're exactly right that creates stability of funding for the Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining. But I think the beauty of it was that rather than trying to find extra dollars from the industry and put additional burden on them during a time of economic distress, this merely allocates additional dollars from severance tax that we weren't getting before to help fund the finances of the division. We're still trying to sort through with the Tax Commission and Department of Finance exactly when those funding transfers would occur, but I totally agree with you that in the long term, it presents more stability to our funding stream, and it will be of benefit to our division. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome. And as I sit on the natural resource appropriation, I am mindful. I know what you guys do and the struggles you've had, and you've done a really good job in the money that's been appropriated to your division, and others on that committee looked at it different. And so we're going to try to do a field trip and try to educate more of them on exactly what this industry does for the state of Utah. And you guys play the largest role in this, in regulating it. And we certainly don't want to put a burden on the industry more than what they already have. I think that we've been really responsible, done a excellent job in how, whether it's air quality issues or spills or something like that. We have been very responsive. Your division does a super good job. But if you guys are worried that you don't have the resources, that's not a way to run any kind of a business or an agency. So this will help you out, and glad to help you do that.
Thank you so much. And look to us when you do your field trip. We'd be glad to participate and help you out with that as much as you need it.
Okay, appreciate that.
Okay, any more questions? Well, Senator Winterton, I want to thank you for your participation, and I also want to thank you as just a private citizen and also worker in this industry. We appreciate your support and insight for the oil and gas industry. It is greatly appreciated, and I think having affordable, abundant energy is critical to this state's economy, and we appreciate you. Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, we'll now turn the time over to Ricky Horenko to give a wrap up of what Senator Winterton just said.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I promise that I am not locked in a closet somewhere. I apologize. I'm at a conference kind of tucked into a cubby here. So hopefully you can hear me okay. It seems so. I'm just trying to pull up my presentation. As I do that, I'm going to lose the ability to see you. So if somebody could verbally give me a yes, we see it in a moment here, that would be really helpful. Let's see. And it looks like something is happening.
We can
see
our presentation, Ricky.
Perfect. Okay. Well, I wasn't joking when I said that Senator Winterton covered a large part of what I wanted to cover, which is great. I will focus primarily on legislative issues, but wanted to give an update on some other state of play related issues. And it would be remiss under the current circumstances if I didn't start by taking a quick reminder and look at where we are with the federal policy changes and open rulemakings. So I know you've all heard this before, feel a little bit like a broken record, but I think it is important just to remind that Utah is very much a federal land state. About 2/3 of our state are federal lands. And so when we look at what that means with new federal rules and policy directions that have paused new leases on federal lands and are still in the process of reviewing the federal oil and gas permitting program, we do bear a disproportionate impact from that. In terms of production off of federal lands, Utah is 5th in the nation for oil and 4th in the nation for natural gas. Happily, as John started out this meeting with, we are seeing a very solid recovery in the basin. APDs are up, well spuds are up, drilling rig counts are up. So that's all very encouraging. What's a little bit worrying on the horizon is what these federal policies are going to do. And it's going to take a little bit more time to work through that to see what the real impact is going to be. BLM did announce that they are continuing to cancel their second quarter lease sales. There's still ongoing review and hearings on a regular basis of the permitting program, which is set to increase royalty rates, include a cost for carbon. There will be new methane rules coming soon, a wide range of things that I'm sure you're all familiar with that are still very uncertain. So from a business certainty point of view, that's a challenge ahead still. But I want to talk primarily today about legislative initiatives. I'm going to start with where we were last summer. In August, as Senator Winterton said, we had 6 special sessions last summer. And in August, we had 2 important bills for this industry that were passed. Senator Winterton ran SB 6004, the regulatory relief bill that he mentioned. I just wanted to highlight that, yes, that is going to be expiring. And July 1, we'll be back to a normal rulemaking process. So we appreciated a little bit of a reprieve there as we were all getting our feet under us from COVID, but we're about to move back into normal course of business. And then Senator Winterton Winterton also briefly touched on SB 6009, which created, amongst a number of other grant programs, the Oil, Gas, and Mining Grant Program. That program was allocated $5 million of CARES Act funding, and as he mentioned, it was actually oversubscribed, fully allocated in the first 8 hours it was open. There are more than a dozen, I think actually more than 24 additional applications that were not funded because of the significant interest in the program. And so as we look at those new federal ARPA funds coming into the state, I know much of the legislative prioritization has been on really big generational projects, on infrastructure, on working with local communities, cities and counties, and other entities that are getting individualized funding from the federal government and trying to build on those collaboratively. But one of the things that we are going to continue to ask for is a refunding, a filling up of that grant program to hopefully provide some additional assistance for those folks that really need it out there. As Senator Winterton said, the unemployment rate in the basin is significantly higher than the state average. One of the things that I'm hearing about from our members a lot is a big challenge of getting service companies and actually just having people to continue to support this recovery. So that's going to be really important in helping to provide the stability to allow the industry to continue to grow and recover. And then I'm going to run through some of these pretty quickly, but from this 2021 general session that wrapped up in March, SB 133 was probably our biggest bill that we were engaged on. We were engaged on several, but this is the one that as Senator Winterton and Director Baza mentioned, takes the existing severance tax, which otherwise would just go into the state's general fund without increasing that fee or that rate on industry, and reallocates it back to a handful of regulatory agencies that are important to our industry, certainly the Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining, but also UGS, DAQ, and DWQ, so Air and Water Quality. And the idea is to try and help stabilize those budgets, to align those budgets to the industry, and to relieve some of the pressure, because one of the things that we have been seeing, and I'm sure Director Baza can speak to this as well, is there has been some legislative pressure from some folks to try and see those agencies operate more independently as a business. The challenge there is that the revenues that a business would have would be reinvested back into it. The revenues in this case for the agencies, particularly for DOGM, they're not getting allocated back into their budget. Those are the severance fees, for example, severance taxes that are going back into the general fund. So this helps kind of create that connection between those industry fees back into the regulatory agency that's helping to create them, and hopefully relieve pressure for the agencies to increase fees back on industry to be more self-sufficient. Senator Winterton talked about HB 17, which was the utility permitting amendments. This is what we call a ban on a ban. Basically, it was a preemptive ban on prohibiting any kind of electricity connection. So just allowing free market, all of the above energy, which I think is really important. We've seen other states like California, for example, that have banned natural gas connections into new developments, and we want to avoid that situation here in Utah. And then I won't go into details on each of these, but we had a number of supportive bills or resolutions passed, which we are so thankful for, from Representative Lyman and from Senator Hinkins. And there are a few others that I didn't include on this list. They all do something a little bit different, but they all kind of work together to articulate the value that our industry, as well as the mining industry, brings to the state of Utah, articulating the right to the state's energy security and energy decision making and economic sovereignty. Some of them placed limits on the application of executive orders. If our state AG reviews those and determines that they're unconstitutional, then they shall not be implicated. They shall not take place here in the state of Utah. And then some of them also instruct the AG to actually litigate if those executive orders exceed the president's power or violate the rights and powers of the state of Utah. So kind of Related to that, but a little bit separately, the AG's office currently has 3 active litigations ongoing where we're partnering with a number of other states against recent federal policies. One is on the cost of carbon and how that is being articulated, or the social cost calculation. A second one is on the cancellation of the Keystone XL pipeline. And the third one is against the federal leasing pause or federal leasing ban and a violation of the FLTMA. So already we have a very supportive state legislature and governor's office, and these bills and resolutions just provide some additional support to continue that. 2 other bills that I'll really quickly run through. Senator Winterton did mention both of these. HB 388, Representative Albrecht's state energy policy amendments. Senator Winterton mentioned hydrogen. There were several hydrogen bills, a lot of discussion around hydrogen this year. UPA's position on all of those bills was really to advocate for each of them to be a all of the above hydrogen solution. So not to focus only on green hydrogen, for example, and we'll get into the rainbow of colors of hydrogen pretty quickly here, but certainly to allow for any type of hydrogen production. As I'm sure all of you know, natural gas is kind of the leader today in terms of fuel source for hydrogen production, and creates a good market opportunity moving forward as well. And it's not that we think that there's going to be some massive shift of hydrogen being the fuel of the future tomorrow, but certainly from a state perspective, we want to make sure that we're getting ahead of this and that we're setting the right policy direction to include all of the above for hydrogen production. So that we're kind of prepared for that technology shift. And then Senator Winterton talked about the mineral lease fund amendments. This was really important in terms of helping clarify what funding CIB can and cannot give, and ensuring that it's, able to have the flexibility needed to support solid projects, even if, the outcome of those projects is not just the traditional CIB uses, but that it does stimulate additional economic benefit, that isn't something that should be called into question. So articulating some of those definitions a bit more clearly and providing better guidance on what CIB can fund, I think is really important moving ahead. So I also wanted to quickly touch on some upstream regulatory issues. As some of you know all too well, we have come off of 2 very large multi-year rulemakings with the division on forced pooling and operatorship in 2020. We are, fingers crossed, hopefully going to be finalizing this month the new rulemaking on penalties and fee schedule. So you may recall that in the 2020 legislative session, we were supportive of a bill that gave the division the ability to directly levy and collect fines rather than having to go through a separate court process. This rulemaking is to implement that legislation and create the fee schedule and the rule of how these penalties would be administered. So that is currently out for public comment and I believe will be on the Board of Oil, Gas and Mining's agenda at the end of this month, and we are supportive of that current rulemaking. And then looking ahead, it looks like we are headed into some additional rulemakings on bonding, on waste disposal changes, oil and gas waste disposal changes, and then probably eventually on horizontal siting. And I would be remiss if I didn't also point out from a regulatory perspective that we are, of course, working closely with DAQ and EPA on ozone non-attainment planning, on the SIP, on the FIP that's going to be coming. And I'm not going to get into all of these air quality research efforts, but we've been really actively involved with USU and with DAQ on a whole host of research topics, trying to better understand the sources of emissions in the basin and make sure that any regulatory actions that come out of a SIP or a FIP are addressing the problem, and we're not targeting, crucial investment dollars at regulatory requirements that aren't actually going to improve air quality. Of course, we're hopeful that the Uinta Basin may actually have a clean third year, which would be required to demonstrate attainment. That is an opportunity on the table that we're still hopeful is going to happen. And we're working with our members to ensure we're doing everything possible to have a clean winter this year going into the ozone season this winter. And then the last thing I want to quickly mention is an initiative that we have recently rolled out called Utah Energy United. This is an effort really to embolden voices from across Utah to advocate for domestic energy policies that are supportive of our industry. So including individuals with firsthand experience that have positive impacts of what a robust energy sector can bring to their daily lives. So UEU, as we call it, is a direct response certainly to the federal policy changes that have come out, but also a response to their call for unity and collaboration in terms of problem solving. I think our industry is an industry of innovators and of problem solvers, and we would like to take up that opportunity. If we're really interested in talking about unity and collaboration, we would be hopeful to have a seat at the table. So right now, you know, we don't feel necessarily like industry voices or even like Western voices are necessarily being heard. And I'm sure you've all heard the old adage that if you're not telling your story, someone else is going to tell it for you. So we're trying to provide an opportunity for not just industry folks directly, but from other people who recognize and appreciate the ways in which the oil and natural gas industry benefits all Utahns and all Westerners, actually. So your friends, your neighbors, your fellow churchgoers, your kid's soccer coach. We're trying to elevate those voices to help paint a more complete picture of how the oil and gas industry benefits Utah. So I would really encourage all of you, if you're interested, if you know of someone else that might be interested, this is just a screenshot of our webpage. If you go to www.utahpetroleum.org, you'll see a little Utah Energy United logo on our menu bar. If you just fill that out, that little right-hand side with just a few details of who you are and what you're interested in doing, we would love to have you join this effort. Then we are deploying those individuals to tell their story. That might be through op-eds to different media. There have been some hearings back in DC with natural resource committees in the House and the Senate. Going into the start of the summer interim legislative sessions here in the state of Utah, there's probably going to be some opportunities as well. And we are actively working to create additional opportunities where we can get these stories and these voices out. So it would be great if you would help us and advocate for the benefits that our oil and gas industry bring to the state of Utah. So that's all I had. I'm happy to take any questions on anything that I discussed here.
I don't see any, Ricky, but at this time, this is our opportunity, and the real reason for this meeting is to collaborate. We have several representatives from state agencies, federal agencies, tribal, county, industry, and private individuals. So here's the time. If you need to ask a question of any of these people, they're here to answer it. Or if you have a issue, we would certainly like to address it at this time. Well, looks like we're doing a great job.
Quick question. Are there any updates on the railroad and what's happening there?
I'd have to open that up to the group if anyone knows about it. We really not had much to do with it at the division level. Anyone out there knows anything about that, Ricky?
I can't really comment officially. I know that the group is still moving forward. I've heard rumors of an announcement coming later in the summer, but they're purely speculation at this point. I'd suggest getting in touch with Pam Giuliano, who could perhaps share more. Any more questions or comments?
John, before we wrap up, I just want to indicate that all of the presenters did a great job today. I want to thank Jordan and Senator Winterton and Ricky for really good presentations. The one comment I would have for UPA is that I have really appreciated, Ricky, the lunch and learn sessions that your organization is putting on. I find them to be both educational and timely in terms of the information that you're addressing. So thank you for doing that. And thank you for the presentation today.
Thank you, John. Do you mind if I give a quick pitch for our next upcoming Lunch and Learn since you opened the door there?
Sure.
So our Lunch and Learns are monthly, every last Tuesday of the month at noon. In May, we're going to be joined by Sheila Vance from DAQ, Amanda Brimmer from EPA, and Mike Natchez from the Tribe to talk about Uinta Basin ozone specifically and the regulatory path ahead. And then in June, our focus is going to be what's going on with gas prices. How do gas prices work? What are the fundamental drivers? And take a look at why gas prices are where they are along the Wasatch Front and statewide. So if you're interested, go to our website. It's free. It's open to the public. All you have to do is register so we can get you the link.
And again, those are really, really good topics, and I find them to be extremely educational in terms of the information presented. The thing I wanted to mention, John, and you were probably going to talk about this anyway, but we delayed our April collaborative meeting until today because of some conflicts with meetings out in the Uinta Basin. But I think we're going to try to stay on schedule and have our next one in July. And if all goes according to plan, I think we ought to try to do it in person again. We're seeing pandemic restrictions being lifted. I think it would be nice to just have an opportunity to gather together again once more in person. So is that the plan, John, as far as you know?
Well, yeah, I was planning July 8th. That's our normal date. We'll have a quick turnaround. That's 2 months from now, but we did delay this last meeting. And I really was just thinking, I'm not sure where we're going to be. But if you wanted to go that direction, John, I feel comfortable with it. And I think we'll check and see where we're at. But we'll let everyone know. But it would be good to get back together again. So if there's no more questions or comments, I just want to second what John said. I appreciate
John Rogers?
Yes.
I'm sorry to cut you off. Deborah Stigman has her hand raised. I just want to make sure she got a chance to ask her question.
Go ahead. Deborah?
Yeah, thank you. There, lower hand. Let's see, I had given myself the luxury of not following the a legislative session too closely, and let me recommend that for mental health if anyone else can ever take that time off. So I was intrigued to hear about an education, and I missed what bill it was. Sorry, Senator Winterton. But about closing an information gap between producers and industry and the general public. Ricky, a couple of years ago, arranged a really wonderful personal educational tour for me with Crescent Point. I still have the sweatshirt. And, the beauty of visiting a place in person is that you understand it, on a deeper level. Like, here are people doing work, and here's the benefit that that we reap from an industry. And then, furthermore, I've come to appreciate the good faith effort that has been made by industry across the board to do your business in the most responsible way possible for your employees, for the communities that you serve in or that you work in, et cetera. So I was just wondering I suppose if you have an idea now of what closing that information gap, what we usually refer to as education, could look like, given that people hear information differently depending on where it comes from. So if you've got something in the works, I'd like to hear about it. If you don't yet, then it would be a really interesting conversation to start in this or another forum. Obviously Facebook is not where you get people to become receptive, and probably not billboards either. So, it's an important thing to do. We need people to not, knee-jerk say fracking is bad, but that is what happens.
I don't know if that question was to Senator Winterton and if he's still
I
on.
suppose it depends on where things are and how it would play out. So anyone who has a thought, please, or some knowledge.
I feel like I'm talking too much on this meeting, but I'll just quickly.
Well, if you know stuff, you should talk.
I'll just quickly answer that. I think that the bill that Senator Winterton was mentioning was focused around ensuring that as the state moves forward with larger scale planning initiatives and kind of strategic planning moving forward, that a whole broad group of stakeholders has a seat at the table in that discussion, so that we're making sure that everyone is heard and we're making sound policy decisions. I think on a more personalized level, Debbie, I completely agree that, Facebook is not the place to have genuine conversations about what are very nuanced issues. Billboards don't help either. And I wish I had the magic bullet and knew what it was, because I feel like we as an industry have really failed at communicating who we are and what we do and what the value of that is. And that's no fault of any individual here, but I think there's a lot more that we need to be and could be doing. Our Utah Energy United effort is one small step or piece of that to try and have a broader view of it's not just oil and gas industry saying, hey, we're important, but other people that understand the role in the supply chain or, petrochemical industry, et cetera. So from UPA's perspective, we're just trying to be more vocal, to be more engaged in broader conversations where maybe we weren't before, or maybe it's not as comfortable as it has been in the past, but to make sure that we're trying to have those genuine conversations. And I don't have the magic bullet to how to fix this. There's a lot that needs to be done.
Yeah. No, I don't imagine that you would, nor anyone. And I actually want to say that I don't think it's a failure of industry that that the public doesn't understand industry. It probably feels that way because you're the ones right now facing the pendulum swinging against you. There is an issue with how information is conveyed in general, how it circulates. So it is a bigger problem than any one person can solve. I appreciate you putting out there that getting involved in uncomfortable conversations is gonna be part of it. I don't know. I suppose that I'm hoping that we're going to raise hopes and lower expectations all at once.
Debbie, this is John Baza, and you and I have talked a lot recently. I know that I've tried to make a more personalized effort to understand the various opinions that are out there in the world, both on the pro-development side and on the pro-environment side. I think that there's good concepts that need to be understood better on both sides of that equation. As a public entity, I just want to tell you that we are very concerned about being transparent, for one thing. We want to make sure that if the public is interested in things that we're doing, that they'll reach out, and we'll certainly share with them what we do, because we work for the general public. But we just recently had some internal departmental discussions, and it was highlighted that we need to be wise with the dollars that the public gives us for both doing our work and for outreach and education. So we got from that we need to be very targeted in how we're spending the public dollar and where we're spending it in order to inform and educate. In the past, we've tended to apply our efforts to upcoming generations by doing educational outreach in elementary schools, maybe the secondary schools a little bit. But I think we're going to spend a lot more time just trying to figure out who the key decision makers are in the state and how we can influence them with some targeted messaging. But beyond that, we probably don't have a lot of capacity to do more educational outreach than we're doing, just because we have our standard responsibilities we have to get done. Having said all that, I think it's key for anyone, whether it's an industry member or a member of the public, to take some personal responsibility to understand. Like the old television show used to say, the truth is out there. We just have to make sure we're looking for it.
Okay. Well, thank you. I think that was a good discussion. Thank you for bringing it up, Deborah. I saw Al Walker raise your hand. Are you still out there, Al?
Yes, I am. And hopefully you can hear me at this point in time. Is that okay,
great.
John?
Yeah, hear you great. Good to hear from you.
Great. I've been gone for about 6 or 7 years, but I'm back again here in Utah, working at the Energy and Geoscience Institute. And I just wanted, we're on education here. I'd like to inform you that the Energy and Geoscience Institute will be having a technical conference next week. There's no fees. And if you're interested in topics such as carbon sequestration, Utah Forge, the big geothermal project going on out at Milford, or oil and gas issues, if you want to reach out to me, I can arrange to send you an invitation to the conference. Invitation is required and registration is required, but there's no fees. Just reach out to me at awalker@egi.utah, that's UTAH.edu. Again, it's awalker@egi.utah.edu. The conference runs from 8 until noon on both Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. And we have about 30 sessions during that time frame. So if you're interested, shoot me a note and I'll send you a copy of the agenda and you can decide whether or not you want to come. Thank you. It's good to see you all.
Thank you, Al. Good to have you back. We missed you.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Okay, any more questions or hands up? I'm not seeing any. If not, then I'd like to go back again and thank Jordan, Ricky, and Senator Winnington. I think we had a very good discussion today. I think we saw where we're headed legislatively and where we're going operationally, where we're at currently. So I think it was insightful today. So appreciate your help there. Also, our tech staff, thanks for getting this together. Went very smoothly. And again, we'll plan for a July 8th collaborative meeting. If there isn't anything else, we'll end this agenda and thank everyone involved.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you, John.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.